Hello. Hi there. Happy Monday. Welcome to What You Need to Know. I am Sybil Wilkes, and Monday means that it is time for Coy Malone, our social activist, justice fighter. And happy Monday to you, Coy. I know you've had a busy weekend into the day. Welcome.
Thanks, Sybil. Yes, it's been a very busy weekend and a busy day. I cannot believe we are almost at the end of the year and so much has gone on
What a
within the last
year.
week. Oh
I
my
don't, you know
gosh.
what? And you said during the last week, but I'm just thinking every year is, it seems like a lot happens. Like for the last several years, there have been an incredible number of deaths of celebrities and what have you.
Yeah.
This year, and then of course, there was all the stuff going on during the Trump administration. And that kept us quite busy. But it seems like just this year with the coronavirus and us, and the changes that it has required of us in our lives, just makes it seem like this is such just a jam-packed full year. And here we are thinking that we were going to be in quarantine for a, a week or two, maybe a month. But here we are, months and months later, and we are talking about the end of this year and still being in quarantine for many of us and wearing the mask and what have you.
Yeah.
Um, we are today is the last day to register to vote, and in the state of Georgia. And we put this on the newsletter, and we also are very happy to be a part of the organization which is driving the vote in the state of Georgia. And this broadcast is brought to you by Black Voters Matter. And asking you to join the movement. You can see the crawl there at the bottom of your screen, and join Black Voters Matter and go to blackvotersmatterfund.org for more information. Black Voters Matter Fund.org for more information. And we thank them for having us as a part of their strive and their action plan to bring about the vote in Georgia, which now is less than a month away.
Yes.
We're talking January 5th is the last day to vote for the two runoff elections for the U.S. Senate seats in the state of Georgia. And you and I are both involved in this, and hopefully we'll be doing some things in the next week or so, and especially because next Sunday is your birthday, but next Monday is
Yay!
is the first day of early voting. And,
Yes.
and if you need more information, as I said, this is the last day to register. Even if you know that you're already registered or you know someone and they think that they're registered, still go to blackvotersmatterfund.org and verify your registration because many people have been purged from the
Yes.
voting rolls. And so we want to make sure that you are part of that. Speaking of which, on Thursday, we had a great show. Every Thursday with George Wallace is great. But we also had two wonderful attorneys who are working on a case now to bring about a lawsuit against the state of Georgia. And the plaintiffs are Black Voters Matter Fund, the Transformative Justice Coalition, and the Rainbow Push Coalition. And their counsels have filed this complaint for injunctive release to address what has been repeatedly brought to the attention of the Secretary of State of Georgia. Everybody knows his name now, don't we? Brad Raffensperger. Just fun to say. As the wrongful cancellation of registrations of almost 200,000 Georgians. And C.K. Hoffler, the president of the National Bar Association, attorney Griggs, who is the justice fighter, were on with us with George Wallace on Thursday talking about the filing of this lawsuit and also about the possibility of the civil rights attorney, the grand Fred Gray, has officially joined this act on with the lawyers and in filing this suit and will play a part in this. Fred Gray, for those of you who don't know, you may have heard the name throughout our civil rights history, but he is a civil rights attorney an activist who practices law in Alabama, and he litigated several major cases in Alabama, including that reached the United States Supreme Court on rulings. And of course, like C.K. Hoffler he was the president of the National Bar Association, and also is a man who it goes way back to the days of the Montgomery bus boycott and other cases and filing cases on behalf of civil rights organizations. And so it's for history buffs, this is a big moment because you see his name, you read his name in the history books, but now to know and to be affiliated with an organization like the National Bar Association, like Transformative Justice Coalition, and like Black Voters Matter Fund.org. It's just really cool to hear his name and to know that this man is going to be a part of another historic legal precedent, I believe, as they try to reinstate the the voting registration of close to 200,000 people. And no telling at this point how many of those folks are Black. But if you'll remember a couple of weeks ago when we had that TikTok feature in which a white woman was calling the attention to Black women, saying that she had purged 11 voters that very day, and 10 of them were women. If that was typical of any day in Georgia, then you know that most of these people were probably Black folks who have had their registrations purged. So this is really important that we recognize all of these things that are going on. And I know that, people are like, oh, I can't take anymore. Oh, when is this all going to stop? It's not. Um, but the beauty of it is that it's taking our minds off of some things, such as the coronavirus, or such as being at home with your family 24 hours a day, or whatever your situation is, because the hope is that an election that's going to take place in less than a month in the state of Georgia is going to change the face of our United States Senate, and it is going to change the course of the Biden administration if, in fact, two Democrats win those seats. So, with that in mind, wanted to talk to Coy, and I think we've lost her, but hopefully we'll get her back on here to talk about. And I'd like for you guys to join us too, and let us know your thoughts if you were able to see the debate last night between the U.S. Senate candidates. So those of us who are not in Georgia but are, connected to this in some form or fashion, were able to watch it on some of the national networks like CNN, and I know that on some of the news apps you were able to watch it. And the first debate was scheduled between Democrat John Ossoff and current U.S. Senator Republican David Perdue. David Perdue chose not to participate in this one, and he said that he didn't want to give John Ossoff an opportunity for another viral moment in order to to enhance the candidacy of John Ossoff. I don't think David Perdue needs to do anything, because if that's what his real mindset was, this was the perfect opportunity for John Ossoff to have his own viral moment as he stood there talking to an empty podium and telling him and telling the empty podium that what you're doing is showing people how you feel that you are just the next. You should be the next senator. That it is something that you should just be assumed that he is going to beat this young man, and that he deserves this, and it's that kind of that. Well, what do you call it? The kind of just privilege that people of a certain hue believe that they have. And so David Perdue did not show up. John Ossoff was able to have his moment and show that he is not afraid of taking on the issues, not afraid of taking on David Perdue, and not afraid of a man who thinks that he is the next to continue this seat. Is elitism. Yes, thank you. And he is not afraid to take on the status quo of the state of Georgia, which is a Republican and a white Republican base that David Perdue has. Well, the tides have changed. Donald Trump He may not accept it, but he's seen it. David Perdue may not accept it and accept what happened to Donald Trump, but he's seen it and he's feeling it. And to run and hide like a scared child is an indication of what perhaps voters will get if they vote for him again. On the other side, the most striking, you know what? I'm trying to think of a debate that I've seen because I like debates. I know I need to get out more and stop watching, all of this legal stuff. But I have a great deal of admiration for people who are able to put forth a message and do it in a powerful way, and to present themselves to the public the way Reverend Raphael Warnock did last night. And he was debating against his his challenger, or he's the challenger, I guess, to Kelly Loeffler, who is the current U.S. Senator, and who was appointed to that position, and she's been in that seat for all of 10 months. You with us?
Yes,
Coy?
I am. I'm hanging on as best as I can. I don't know what's happening.
Well, you know what? We'll keep going, and then hopefully get that internet bill paid for you. So
No, it's paid.
I know,
I
I
don't know
know,
why
I
it's
know,
going on.
I know. But I was talking about I don't know if you could hear us while you were off, but talking about all the things going on in Georgia, and then move to the debate that was held last night.
Oh,
uh,
goodness
that, that
gracious.
those of us around the country got a chance to see, as well as folks in the state of Georgia. So I was talking about John Ossoff and the elitism that he accused David Perdue of exemplifying by not showing up. They had debates earlier before the runoff, and or before they were put into a runoff. But he was quite offended by the way that John Ossoff presented himself, and he did not want to give Ossoff the opportunity for any more viral moments, and so he chose not to. But that gave John Ossoff a perfect opportunity to present himself and to show David Perdue, show the public and the voting public who David Perdue really is. And the other
Right.
side of that, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the empty podium debate?
Yeah, well, David Perdue did announce weeks ago that he was not going to participate in any more debates. I feel like he knows that he's not a good candidate, and in professional terms, it's almost like you conceded your seat, in my opinion. So go ahead, run along and sit at home and watch it at home. We, the people, are going to vote for somebody that is not you, David Perdue, and fill your seat. I just feel like it's also it's a cop out to not show up and to not present your side, whether or not you're going to win or lose. It just shows weakness in a candidate to me. And there are Republicans that are running around here that are like saying, yeah, we have the greatest candidates for this seat, and there are billboards and things like that. Like, as soon as you get less than 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, I'm seeing huge billboards for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, and I'm like, are you guys insane? This is who you're backing.
Yeah, and I don't know if you how you feel about it, but it shows such a total lack of regard, a disregard for the voters throughout the state of Georgia to not show up. He owes it to them. If he's
Right.
coming to them for their votes, he owes it to them to show up and show out.
Exactly.
And to show himself for who he really is. By not showing up, he's shown who he really is, and that is a man who cannot take the heat, and has nothing to show for his years in the U.S. Senate.
Exactly. And I feel like you're right about that. You should be speaking to your audience to let them know exactly what it is that you stand for and what you don't stand for. And by just, like I said, copping out, we don't know what's going on. I will be
Well,
surprised and
we do.
flabbergasted if he gets voted into office, though.
But you know what? You know what, Coy? That's why it's so important that we keep reminding people that today is the last day to register to vote. Today is the last day to register to vote. Unless this lawsuit, which has been expedited, goes forth and they make their presentation on Thursday. This is the National Bar Association and other great lawyers, Attorney Griggs and Attorney Hoffler, and the great attorney Fred Gray, go forth and make their presentation on Thursday. This means that, which will extend the voter registration for these people who have been purged, perhaps. This is why it's so important that we get people out there to vote, to register, to check your registration, to register again if you have to, and to vote. And then next Monday, let's start doing that early voting. Um, Need you to turn off your iPad, Coy. If it's on, it may be pulling the Wi-Fi because she is frozen there.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. So if you can turn your iPad off, if it's on. Is your iPad on?
Mm-hmm. It
Okay, so
was.
it
I just
was
turned it
okay.
off. Mm-hmm.
All right. So okay, so that's David Perdue, and that's a recap, and then another recap with Coy about these two guys. And Coy, what were your thoughts about the second debate with Kelly Loeffler and the incredible Reverend Raphael Warnock?
Well, I feel like Kelly Loeffler has now authored probably one of the greatest hits in political songs with the radical liberal Raphael Warnock, radical liberal Raphael Warnock, radical liberal Raphael Warnock. I'm like, yo, that's a new song. I need to get with Suede, the remix god, and lay that track. That was amazing. I feel like she created a new drinking game. She didn't answer most of the questions. And again, like I said, I don't like to watch a lot of the debates. I like to go back and read the transcripts, read the news stories and things like that. I feel like it gives me a better perspective. Sometimes I just learn better that way by reading. And there were so many questions that she just avoided. And so now we have two Republican candidates that one didn't show up and the other avoids questions. And this is who, Republicans of the state put their trust into. This says a lot about people that live here in Georgia.
Okay. So, and this was the point I wanted to make earlier with you. David Perdue did not show up last night, but he did show up on Saturday with Donald Trump. That's where he chose to stand and to put his staff in place with Donald Trump. And if that's where we're going with this senator and what he believes that he brings to the table is his allegiance to Donald Trump and not to come and be as open and as honest as he possibly can with the American people, the citizens of Georgia. This is what you're in for. And Kelly Loeffler for the same thing, because she might as well have not shown up last night for the answers that she did not give. She did what people who are very practiced in the art of debating understand very well, but she did it in such a way that it was repetitive and robotic in her answers. Usually they say if you don't have an answer for something, you don't answer the question, you give them the answer that you want to give, right? And so you frame it in a different way and then give them an answer. And so she did a lot of pivoting and trying to give answers, but it was the same three answers every time.
And it was so bad that even Fox News was dragging her on broadcast. And I'm like, wow. Fox News, stands behind Republican candidates every time. This year, we're starting to see a change with even Fox News getting on these people. Wow. It's amazing to see.
Meghan McCain's husband's name is Ben something, and he is one of the analysts on Fox News, and he was on last night. And they pulled them out of that so quickly after the debate was over because he and I think it was Dana Perino, they really had nothing that they could give to Kelly Loeffler. And so this was really interesting in that, as you said, the radical liberal Raphael Warnock. She also talked about him being anti-police, anti-military, wanting to defund the police. And the third was she's living the American dream, and she wants to present that to all of the people of Georgia, which she has not done. And
Nope.
so, in the 10 months, I donate my salary. Well, so does Donald Trump, but what good is that doing us? We need action. The
Exactly.
money is great, and we don't know to whom you are donating the money, and the money is great if it's going to the proper people. But to say this and to say that I grew up on a farm and I started working at 11 and I'm living the American dream and I want to pass this on, and yet you're calling organizations like uh, uh,
Black
Black
Lives
Lives
Matters.
Matters and calling them fascists
Right.
and not understanding and being bold enough and just such a horrific person to say this and to take on the women that work for her as in the players for the WNBA. And they're like, okay, well, you're calling this organization fascist. You're right down the road from where Ahmaud Arbery was killed.
Right.
You saw what happened with George Floyd. You've seen the stories with Breonna Taylor. And if you haven't, shame on you. But that's okay because we're going to put on T-shirts supporting your opponent. Which I absolutely love them for doing, the women of the WNBA team in Atlanta. So yeah, so those were her things. And Raphael Warnock, with the exception, I mean, even when he asked her the question, yes or no, did
Right.
Donald Trump lose this election? And she, she made that turn. And well, there's some things, and he has the right to contest and just yes or no.
Right.
Even some of the people, the media who were there asking the questions were going after the same things. Now, Raphael Warnock, to his credit, answered most of the questions to the best of his ability, which I thought was quite good. And his practice years of speaking before audiences and bringing it home to the church members during a sermon on Sundays I thought was just poetry in motion in a lot of respects. But the one thing he did not answer was the question talking about packing the Supreme Court, meaning adding more members to the Supreme Court beyond the 9 that we have now. And but his answer was great because they went back and said, but you didn't answer the question. He said, man, people aren't talking to me about this. People don't care.
They don't care
they,
about that.
they want to know. And as he reminded them, what's on the ballot is healthcare, is jobs, is dealing with, in the same under the same umbrella of healthcare, is the coronavirus, is getting people back, which is what I've done in my church for years, is getting people back on track and living productive lives. Um,
Exactly.
and I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And of course, the drop the mic moment was when he said, in reference to the charges leveled by her during the campaign, Reverend Warnock said, she's lied not only on me, but about Jesus.
Jesus. Oh man, and you can't do that, especially down here. We're in the Bible Belt. There are a lot of church going people on both sides. So
Mm-hmm.
when you sit here and you misquote the Bible and try to use it to, your advantage, and then swear up and down this is what it says, people are going to look at you side-eyed. And then they're going to tell you to go back to church and get blessed at the pulpit for speaking blasphemy, for blasphemous talk.
So we cannot remind you enough. And as you see, if you want to get more information from blackvotersmatterfund.org, please go to them. If you have any questions, you want to help somebody who's living in Georgia and may not have registered or checked their registration yet, please do that today. This is the last day, barring the success of the lawsuit that's been filed, and they will have a hearing on Thursday. And this is Monday, December 7th, a day which will live in infamy. That's way before
Yes.
both our times. So anyway,
And I
but
just
it
want
is.
to say that the Republicans are also accusing that a majority of the Democratic voters in Georgia were dead voters. And I'm like, no, they weren't dead. They were just people that didn't vote before in years
Right.
prior.
Right.
So now there's this question also of people that have voted in Georgia. And that was, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people were purged from the system, because there were people that just hadn't voted before.
And that really is kind of crazy too.
It's
About people
alarming.
who have not voted. It is alarming in terms of people. But as we said, let's just give you a blank slate. Let's just go forward and understand the importance of what this vote means, especially in these two elections. In
Yes.
these two elections, two people running against the status quo. And the status quo is, of course, the Republican leadership for the state of Georgia. And what is it, for the first time since, is it 1990 or 1980, that if a Democrat wins either of these races, and hopefully both, since
When Clinton was in office, I want to say 1994.
okay, so this is a moment in time, and it is, and you can get with history, or you can stay at the house with David Perdue. I don't know.
Exactly.
So as we mentioned, did you go to Valdosta on Saturday? Is that where you traveled to?
On Saturday, no, I did not go to Valdosta. Mm-mm. I don't like traveling that far outside of Atlanta, because
Oh, okay.
once you get outside of Metro Atlanta, it gets a little Confederate.
Okay. Well, that's
Proudly.
where Donald Trump flew in and spent 2 hours almost on stage. And amongst those 2 hours, he might have talked about Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue for all of 5 minutes. And
So he's going
and
on a hissy fit tour, basically.
yeah, and his Donald Trump 2024 tour. A lot of people are speculating.
Oh yeah. He has started sending out emails to his supporters saying that this is our plan going forward with 2021. He has no plans of stepping down as president. As a lot of people may not know, that legally he has 5 weeks to have votes recounted and to go
Yeah.
through this process. That's what's taking it so long, because he's going to extend it all the way to that 5th week, that last day. So,
Well, we're
everybody
here.
just
We're here because
right.
as of tomorrow, December 8th, is when all the states should have their electors in place. And
Yep.
so this is pretty much the end of the road for him. But one of my favorite lines from this is that he said, in talking about these last 4 weeks since, because the 7th was a month ago today, that Biden was declared as president of the United States, which is just fun and nice to say.
And the oldest president of the United States.
Yeah, and then there's that too.
And he had his birthday.
and 78 and a broken foot. So, all of that together, yay. But as a part of his speech on Saturday, he told people he had never worked as hard over the last 3 weeks as he has in the 4 years that he's been president. Now, let me get this straight.
That explains a lot.
I'm going to ask you, Donald Trump, something of the United States. Did you say you had not worked as hard in 4 years as you had in 3 weeks to prove people that you had not lost this election, which you obviously had? So the month of January, or December, when you knew about the coronavirus, and then presented it to people months later, let's say weeks later, to the American public about this disease. You did not work as hard during the coronavirus inception, during the beginning, when this virus, before it took a hold of this country, the likes of which no one else in the country has had, where you have almost 300,000 people who have died from this.
Right.
You have millions of cases of this disease, and you did not work as hard to do anything to stop that, to get people all of the needs that they had, the PPE. You did nothing to stop the spread of it by encouraging people to wear masks. You did nothing more what you did was not as strong as what you did over
in
these
the
last
last
3 weeks.
3 weeks. That
That
just
is
goes to show you
sad.
right there. He admittedly says that he is not a good president, and there are people that will still stand behind this and
Yeah.
swear up and down that Donald Trump is who this country needs, and it's obviously not. We have so
And they're
many more COVID
scared.
cases
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
than in the beginning. This could have been stopped
Yeah.
months ago.
And,
Months
and
ago.
this too is before your time, but there's an old TV show called Andy Griffith. You may have seen it. And
Mhm.
Barney Fife, his deputy, used to say, nip it in the bud. And he could have. He could have nipped this disease in the bud and stopped the spread of the Chinese virus, as he likes to call it. He could have kept the economy strong. He could have prevented almost 300,000 deaths. I'm not saying that it would have, no one would have died from this, but just think of how he could have nipped this, how he could have stopped it, how he could have, as they used to say, they don't say this much anymore, flattened the curve
Right. And he
before
could
the
have stopped
curve
it within
started.
his own circle as well. There are
Oh,
people
yeah.
immediately linked to Trump that have been tested
Yep.
positive. His son tested positive. He
His son
tested positive.
and his boy Rudy is in the hospital now.
This is sad. This is terrible.
Rudy Giuliani just went to the hospital after traveling around the country for the last month, trying to save Donald Trump's, election or lack thereof.
Right.
And he's no spring chicken either.
No.
And when you look at Black people who have been affected, like the late Herman Cain, and supporting Donald Trump, and he paid the highest price for his support of Donald Trump.
It's awful. Y'all better stop. This
It's,
virus is real.
so every day in the What You Need to Know newsletter, we have a coronavirus update, and it is powerful and it is packed full of information. And as I mentioned, now we are at almost 300,000 people who have died from this disease. One of the stories that we're talking about for tomorrow is Carl Anthony Towns, the basketball player, and the fact that not only did his mother die, he lost 6 other family members to coronavirus. They died. 7 members of your family dying from this disease, and so unnecessarily, obviously. His mother had a pre-existing condition, and, wash our hands, wear our masks, stay socially distant, all of that business. And it's just heartbreaking to me. It's just heartbreaking.
It
Now, on the
is.
lighter side of things, Coy, and I don't mean lighter, but because you have on the more positive side of this virus, you are working and you get tested on the regular
Yes.
for the virus. So tell me what that's like.
It's a little annoying because I don't want to have a swab stuck halfway up to my brain or even the antibody test, but it has definitely kept me in line with staying healthy during this pandemic. I've had both the nasal test and the antibody test, and I
Mm-hmm.
do things like I work on set, sometimes I film, and with the antibody test it detects if you've had coronavirus, even if you have gotten over it, and the antibodies can last in your system for up to 6 months. So these are things that I have to be aware of when I do get booked on, different shows and productions, because even if I've had the coronavirus, I cannot have the antibodies, and that could put me out of work for 6 months. And this is what a lot of people are dealing with. I've known a bank teller friend of mine who was my former bank teller who contracted coronavirus and they had a smaller branch where they were only letting in one person at a time, and he
Mm-hmm.
still contracted the virus. I have a cousin that contracted the virus, and both of them have recovered, but
Thank
still
God.
it's something that you don't want to go through. I have a contact now that works within politics in Texas that is at home in quarantine because he has contracted the coronavirus. This is something that's very, very serious. And I think about that as I go about my day-to-day life. And Georgia is one of the states that is still pretty much it's wide open.
Yeah.
I got invited over the weekend to go to brunch with a friend, and I refused to walk in the building because It was small, it was compact. There was a lot of people in there. There were a lot of people that weren't wearing masks. And I just said, hey, listen, I have to do 2 different productions this week, as well as travel. And I have to be, cautious doing these things. I have to test for each production and also to travel outside of Atlanta and then coming back. So these are things that I have to keep in mind. And sometimes I look at Governor Kemp, like, I understand that the economy was going down because we were in quarantine, and there are restaurants and, different businesses and things like that and clubs that were suffering during that. But when you open that and you don't put in place more precautions that could keep people safe, and just the fact that we opened up a lot earlier than many places in the United States, I feel like that was just putting money over people and over your citizens. And I feel like we dropped the ball on that. And, even though Trump right now, who's still in office, said that he wasn't going to put the United States back into quarantine, I feel like that's something that should happen. And I just kind of look at our governor and shake my head at him, because I know he's not going to put the state back into quarantine. And I feel like a lot of times it should be.
How many coronavirus tests do you think you've taken? Do you have an idea, a guesstimate?
At this point, it's been about 5 or 6.
Okay. And so, have you taken the variety of tests? Like you mentioned the swab, and now people say that you don't have to do the swab so much, and there are different varieties.
Yeah, there are. So I've taken the swab, and then the antibody test is when they actually draw blood from you, and they'll do like a rapid test to see if you have the antibodies present within your system. But I've been negative every time because I don't go nowhere. and I was working, and a lot of the clubs and stuff like that opened in July, and I opted to stay home for many months until about August. And September was when I was working in the clubs and just being in there and seeing how it was. Like, there was one club that did enforce masks, but there were still, dancers that weren't really wearing masks. There were customers that weren't really wearing masks. And I went to another club where it was just masks were not there. And I felt like an alien amongst people wearing my mask. And, I'm getting stared at and looked. And I'm like, hold on, like, I'm protecting myself. And people don't understand that, COVID does not have a geographical boundary. It does not stop at the club and say, oh, don't go in there, they about to throw some ones. It does not say that. It goes wherever it wants to go, and it replicates however it wants to replicate. And people need to understand how a virus works and why this pandemic is going on so long, because even though it's not considered a living thing because it cannot reproduce on its own, but it does reproduce by getting inside of your body and tricking your cells into thinking that it is a part of your own body. So your body does not administer, it doesn't administer your immune system to attack it and to fight it off until it has spread so much. And then you start to have these symptoms, and then you start to get sick and things like that. That's how a virus works. So people need to understand that it also there isn't anything that can technically kill a virus, and it's going to keep replicating, and then it's going to also keep mutating to get stronger. So there's going to be different versions. So the versions that people are catching now is not the version that was out in March. And this is something that's going to continuously happen and continuously spread. So you have to be aware of these things. And I'm aware of these things because I was a biology major in college. So I know about, viruses and how they work and how they spread and pandemics. And we're not at the ending of this yet. And I know a lot of people are tired of this, but we have about another year and a half with this.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people right now going, oh God. But that's the real.
I ruined brunch for tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry for the weekend and as we get ready for Christmas. But that is the real. And one of the stories in our coronavirus update is talking about the mortality rate for Black folks is now 3 times three times more often that Black folks are going to die than for every one white person from this virus. And that, it was for a while, it was believed to be the mortality rate was twice, but now it's 3 times. And it ain't fair, but it is what it is. And we have to be very careful and very proactive in taking care of ourselves and protecting ourselves from this. So You know that Coy is our social justice activist, and we had a story that Coy did. That's just going to give you a preview of this for tomorrow. Are you prepared to talk about this story?
Whew, because it's a lot, y'all. I ain't even gonna
Okay.
lie. It's a lot. Let's
Okay.
go.
Okay. Okay. So this has to do with the shooting in Minnesota. We know that Keith Ellison, he's a former congressman from Minnesota. He is now the current attorney general. Will decide if a St. Paul, Minneapolis police officer, Anthony Dean, should be charged in connection with the non fatal shooting of a 31-year-old black man, Joseph Javante Washington. How do I know he's a black man? His name is Joseph
Javante
Washington. Okay.
Washington.
Washington. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Coy. So go ahead.
So this man, Washington, was found in a former girlfriend's home. She got home on a Saturday night and discovered him in the home. He threatened to kill her, grabbed knives, and sexually assaulted her in her bathroom. He used her cell phone to live stream this on her Facebook and Snapchat accounts, unfortunately. Then he made her drive from, I want to say the city is Lakeville, to St. Paul, Minnesota, forced her to drive. During that time, they struggled. He was punching her when she tried to slow down. And eventually he ended up crashing the car by grabbing the steering wheel. He fled on foot. The girlfriend was able to flag down a motorist for help. Police came and tracked him down to a dumpster. At which time, when they asked him to come out, he came out of the dumpster. The man was naked. I didn't even know that he was naked driving, but he was naked in the dumpster. He came out of the dumpster. He was then tasered with a stun gun, and then attacked with the police dog. And then after that time, the police officer Dean shot him. They don't say why or what was the surrounding circumstances, but he was shot. And so now action has been taken against the police officer. It hasn't been disclosed as far as all the details, including the officer's race and the extent of action that was taken against him. But it has been confirmed by unidentified police sources that he has been fired. So there's so many different things that are going on in this story. We do recognize a woman has been sexually assaulted and she's been brutalized. That's terrible. This man has also been shot. He was unarmed and he was naked. As far as I know, there were no reports of him, not complying with police. And given the sensitivity of the situation, I don't know if the police were informed of that. However, Officer Dean did say that he felt that this man, Washington, was a threat to him and his colleagues. Now it's up in the air, like I said, because we don't know if this was a personal attack. Did he know that this man sexually assaulted and brutalized this woman? So these are things and questions that have to be answered. And the attorney general that is handling this case is also the attorney general that handled the case with the 4 officers that are charged with the murder of George Floyd. So there's so much going on from so many different angles that I don't even know where to start.
Well, you did a good job. You did a good job. And I can't say that I could not possibly disagree with you more.
And it's sad. It's sad.
And because he live streamed his sexual assault of this woman, he beat her, he threatened her, he kidnapped her, put her in the car, and drove to another part of the state, right? I don't have a problem with what they did to him. I have a problem with, yes, I have a problem with cases where the black man is automatically assumed to be guilty. But this was live streamed stuff that, and I'm assuming that they knew this case and had a sense of history because of how this all played out. But I really believe, and I can't even call her the alleged victim because she was victimized and we saw it. It was seen. He did it. He recorded it, right? And so my problem is I I don't know why people are, and I will take all the heat in the world, but I don't know why people are so angry about him being shot in a non-fatal shooting um, because of what he did to her. Now, if it turns out that they didn't know that they hadn't seen it, and he was just doing it because it was a naked black man in, and they were and even if he felt threatened, I never believe that they feel threatened when they got all of the things at their disposal that they have. I never
Right.
believe that, but that's always the excuse. I felt threatened, and so a naked man coming up out of that's not right. But I don't know why the attorney general has to be called in on this case to investigate the work. And it may be because it is the history that Minnesota has, and with George Floyd and what have you in the police departments, which started a lot of the conversation about defunding the police.
Yeah.
But my heart is with this young woman.
And mine is as well. Unfortunately, I do know what it's like to be that kind of victim. I've been in similar, situations with attacks and assault. And so I feel for her. That is something that is you never really forget about it. It takes time to get over it. And then I do feel for the person, and not because, he was arrested or anything like that. By all means, he does deserve to be arrested. He does deserve to be, charged. He also deserves a fair trial.
Mm-hmm.
He deserves that. And if the
I'm with
police
you.
officer
I'm with you
was
on that.
motivated, yeah, and if the police officer was motivated to shoot him based off of what he knew to happen to this
Mm-hmm.
young woman, that does not give him a right to a fair trial. He has become, judge and jury by possibly killing this man when that should be decided by a court of law with a judge and a
And
jury.
and that's what
So,
Deidre says. Deidre says the assault case, she's on Facebook or YouTube, and she said the assault is separate from the shooting. And I understand that,
yeah,
but I am too emotional about the horrific lead up to this.
right.
And so I'm not able to make that the disconnection between, what he did to her and what was done to him.
Yeah,
Um,
and then and with law enforcement, one of the things is also, and this is what my thinking is with this situation and what makes this shooting wrong, is because the threat to her attacker, was no longer present with her.
mhm.
It had been since removed, separated. He fled on foot. So there was no reason for him to be a threat in the situation any longer, because him as an attacker was nowhere near her or anybody that he could attack at that moment. And then also the fact that he was naked and he was unarmed, he could be apprehended simply.
And so let me ask you this, because he was tased, then the police dog, and then the shooting. So do you know, like, the steps, like when he was tased? Because I don't know how they have tasers that don't work. I just, and I don't mean to make light of it, but
Mhm.
it just always boggles my mind that, they have these pieces of equipment, and then they say they don't work.
Right.
So do you know from the story, and you're covering this, do you know what was the process like? Was he shot with a taser, and he still came at the police? Did the attack dog, did they bring in the attack dog then, and that didn't work? Although I think a dog and a naked man is a dangerous
That's
combination.
there's so many things that could go wrong with a dog and a naked
So so
man
many things.
biting him. Oh
Uh,
no.
that's
So
what I'm saying.
so
And
the
so
reports that I read just said that he was stunned with the stun gun, then attacked with the dog, and then shot. So my thinking is, this is just my thinking, educated guess, that he was stunned, that hurts. Ouch, let me rip this out. He was bit by a dog. Who lays still when they got bit by a dog? I know when I got bit by a dog as a kid, I didn't lay still. I got up and ran. Okay. So he might have been running or trying to free himself from this dog. And, last choice, I guess the officer thought, well, just shoot him.
and
Mhm.
that's my fear, is that it just doesn't. John on Facebook says that he was guilty, should have been arrested, not shot. I
Mhm.
agree. But it is what it is, and I don't mean that cavalierly. I mean, here we have a situation, and I hope that justice does prevail. And but I've seen so many cases where men, are attacked by the dogs, where they are tased and shot, and but this whole thing, the how it all started is still where I'm stuck.
Mind-boggling. I'm hoping
Yeah,
that there's justice on both sides because I
yeah.
have seen cases where women have been assaulted, have been attacked, and their attacker walks free or has something like a month in jail, and then they're just given a restraining order. I've
You
seen
know,
those things
and
happen.
and I got to tell you,
Mhm.
there's a man. He's a black man. He's now in his 80s, and there's a great piece in the New York Times over the weekend, telling about he is a serial rapist and killer, and how he got away with this, and the system allowed him to get away with this for generations. Okay, and so that was in the back of my mind too. And so there are a lot of things going through my head. It's an incredible story. You talk about black folks getting the short end of things, and how this man was able to beat the system for years,
Mhm.
and even after he was arrested, in his later years, and sitting in prison, and then recounting the stories of all of these young women who were prostitutes or drug addicts,
Yeah.
and he was always able to use that as an excuse, and they didn't know what they were talking about, and he was able to get off on a lot of these cases.
I saw
Before,
a documentary about
and
that
yes,
as well.
yeah,
And yes, this man, he was attacking prostitutes, and a lot of them were drug addicts. And when they went to the police,
yep,
they didn't believe him. They just said, "Oh,
exactly,
whatever." And
exactly,
they end up finding dead bodies in this man's
yeah,
home
yeah,
years and years and years later. So
yeah.
there's so many different things, like I said, with this case that it's gut wrenching and it's alarming to see. It brings up a myriad of issues that need to be addressed, and not just with social justice issues, but with women's rights issues as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So go to law school and work on that for me, will
Yeah,
you?
definitely going to law school, people.
Okay,
We have a
okay,
lot of things to fight out here.
okay. Another sad thing that I want, and Amy, thank you for agreeing with me. I have no sympathy for this man. But hopefully justice will prevail, and especially in this young woman's case against him. Um, Found out yesterday, and she confirmed it today, that Wendy Williams' mother passed away. And as she said, it was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago. And obviously, she was not prepared to share it with people. And that's her business. Um,
Right.
Social media, a friend went on Instagram and talked about it, and then she, was forced to come out and tell people about the loss of her mother, who became a character of her own. And the second loss is a young woman, an actress that we knew from movies like Babs,
Hmm.
Natalie DeSalles, 53 years old, and died of
Young.
colon cancer. And that was announced today. And just please take care of yourselves. Please, please, please get checked and do the right thing as we are going through this difficult time. So we pray for them and their families. And Coy, I want to thank you so much. I will see you next week.
I will be here.
And before we go, as we told you, we are thankful to the people from blackvotersmatterfund.org. And before we leave, we'd like you to take a look at this.
Hello, BVM family. My name is Julian Bell. I'm a project manager and organizer here at Black Voters Matter. The Senate is important to me because they actually passed the legislation that affects each and every one of our lives every day. So if you're in Georgia, we need your support on January 5th, 2021 by voting and getting to the polls. If you're not in Georgia, we need you to call your friends and family in Georgia and tell them to get to the polls. This race is extremely important because it means that Georgia can play a key role in determining whether or not the United States Senate will flip. And this can bring great things for Black voters in this state and throughout America. Remember that Black voters did the hard work, but there's more work to do. Can't stop, won't stop. Let's do it again.
Thank you so much to Black Voters Matter Fund, and we will be with you next week. And you guys, this is great news. This just came out a few minutes ago. Joe Biden has selected the retired General Lloyd Austin as the Defense Secretary, and he will be the first Black man to lead the Pentagon. That's pretty awesome.
Dope. Wow.
That's
We
pretty
are
awesome.
living the dream.
That's pretty awesome. Let us hope that the dream continues. And you can help that happen when you, Georgia, go to vote. Early voting starts next Monday. Check your registration tonight before it's too late. All right.
Get there.
Tomorrow we'll be back, and Damon Williams will be with us. Please be careful and register to vote, Georgia. See y'all tomorrow.